Christina Hubbard, and I've got Emily Conrad here with me today. She is the author of Justice, a brand new fiction book. And Emily, you and I have been friends for a couple of years. We were just talking about that. We've been poetry buddies, and we met through your short story, A Thing of Beauty. And I just think it's so cool how we've been connected over these years, emailing and developing a friendship online as creatives. So introduce yourself to us and your family and where you live.
Sure. Okay. Well, I still remember one of the first things of yours that I read too was a poem on your blog. So it has been really neat to develop a writing friendship through the internet like that and sharing writing. And it's just really neat the way writers can really connect like that. And those friendships are just really special. So, but I'm Emily Conrad. I am a novelist. I live in Wisconsin. I'm married. We have 2 dogs. And currently we have an exchange student from China who is staying with us this year and probably next year as well. Let's see, I said I live. And that's also where I said.
Can you say that last bit? I don't know, the connection was a little off.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Which part?
You were talking about your exchange students and.
Oh, yeah. So we have an exchange student living with us this year and probably for next year too. She's from China, planning to go to university here in the States. And other than that, we live in Wisconsin. My books are set mostly in Wisconsin too. So that really carries over into my fiction, really influences things, I think. So.
Yeah, cool. So how did you get into writing?
Sure. I started writing when I was really young. I remember having like Lisa Frank notebooks in like when I was just like writing in markers and trying to write poetry as a child. I started getting into stories more in middle school. We had an acting troupe visit our middle school, and we were supposed to submit plays that the acting troupe could act out. And so I wrote one, and it involved a yodeler. But other than I don't remember what was in the story. But they chose that play to act out. And then in 8th grade, we had a unit on writing short stories. And I started writing short stories then, and I just never quit. It's been a love ever since.
That's so cool. Now, why don't you introduce Justice to us, just the premise of the book and the characters?
Sure. Justice is the story of Jake and Brooklyn. They've kind of been stuck in the friend zone since childhood. Just when they're about to finally move past that, Jake finds out that Brooklyn is pregnant with another man's baby. He later learns that the pregnancy is the result of a rape. Brooklyn, meanwhile, is questioning what God might be trying to teach her through what's happened to her. There are some other complications in the story with but ultimately the story is really about the aftermath of the rape, how Jake and Brooklyn apply their understanding of justice and forgiveness to the situations that they face.
So those are some pretty tough topics. How did the idea for this book come about?
Well, I don't remember the very initial, like where this story came from. I was writing it for a long time. So I started what was really the first draft of Justice, probably my first summer after high school. So like 17-ish years ago. And so I don't really remember where that part came from, but at the time it was about longtime friends, so Jake and Brooklyn. And they were dealing with the aftermath of a rape. At the time, I didn't have the pregnancy storyline in there. That came about later. I wrote young adult fiction for a long time, and I had an agent for that. When my initial manuscript didn't sell, and my agent and I were trying to figure out what I should write next, I did kind of come back to Justice. She, we, I don't know, it just didn't seem like a good fit for her. But at the time, she had suggested that maybe I should take a classic storyline and write a story that's kind of based on a classic storyline. Around the same time, someone invited me to hear Liz Curtis Higgs speak. She's an excellent speaker. She borrows a lot of Bible storylines for fiction that's set in other times. And so I read her unveiling Mary Magdalene, and it's part Bible study, but it's also part, she has like a contemporary story that she wrote in there that's based on the story of Mary Magdalene. And so I just found that really inspiring. And I took some of the similarities between the storyline that Jake and Brooklyn were facing and the account of Mary and Joseph in the Bible, and kind of ran from there with that. And that's how the book finally got its ending, because up until then I could never write an ending that I felt was satisfying. So that was really fun.
That's cool. So bits and pieces of things, but
yeah,
it came together over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character and why?
I knew you were going to ask that. I tend to fall for my heroes, whatever the story is. So I think I'll have to say Jake. I hope that works out well for readers, though, because I'm hoping if I fall for them, that means readers will. So hopefully that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely good. Yeah. Do your characters kind of take a life of their own as you start to write? I mean, I've heard a lot of fiction writers say that, the character just starts to write the book. Is that way for you?
I wish they would write the books. There are times when they don't cooperate with what I want, just because, I had one recently where I changed a major plot in a different manuscript that I was working on, and I changed a major plot point. So I took away a bad event in a character's past. So he no longer had to feel guilty about this. That wasn't there anymore. And there was another character who was kind of trying to manipulate him. And when she tried it without this event in his past to feel guilty about, he kicked her out. And I was like, well, that doesn't work anymore. So they don't write the stories, but you do have to stay true to their characters. So sometimes the things that you want to have happen in the plot, it's kind of like, well, why would they reasonably do that or not do that? And so each character, they have different ways of like wording things too. And so sometimes if you want to change like what characters are in a scene or something, those things will have to change too, but they don't take over the whole story on me. I wish they would.
That would make it so much easier, wouldn't it?
It would be so much easier. Just follow these people for a while and you'll be good, but no.
Yeah. So I love the tension between Jake and Brooklyn. I thought you did a really excellent job with that. And like in a lot of your short stories as well, you really cover this idea of struggling to surrender to love of another person and also God's love. So how does that, do you actually think about, I'm going to put this theme in this book because it's something I really want to write about, since it's kind of pervasive in all of your work, or is it just something that comes out?
Yeah, that's an accident. I don't consciously put that in the stories. One thing I remember from I married my high school sweetheart, so I didn't have this a lot of dating stories, but I do remember that kind of hopeful longing in a relationship where you're hoping that whatever is standing in the middle of this relationship is going to be resolved and that it's going to have a happy ending. And in real life, that sometimes is disappointed in our relationships, especially in the human ones. And I love in fiction that you can still have that, but there's that payoff of that happy ending, at least when you're at the end, I tend to have. So I think I kind of like that waiting, especially when it's filled with hope like that, like it can be in fiction. So maybe that's where that comes from. I don't know. That might just be something God kind of works into the stories.
Yeah. It's so cool how on the page you can work out things in your own life or things that you observe in life and want to explore. I think that's really the beauty of fiction, is that you can do it kind of discreetly, Maybe poetry's the same.
Or not, because then
or
you
not.
emails that are like, wow, the things you said about, whatever. And you're like, well, I was learning as I wrote,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. That's one of the reasons I connected with your work, was because of, especially in A Thing of Beauty, you really do such a good job of exploring someone who's trying to get over their body image and surrender to that love. And I think a lot of people, especially Christians, even today, struggle with that. So I think I just love that you have that theme in your writing. I think it's really, really, really enables people to connect with you. So we have to talk about the coffee shop, because that is like a main character for me. I don't know why, because well, I sent you that picture of the coffee shop close to where I live, and I love that place. And I just immediately pictured this small town coffee shop, with the brick and the big window. So
I think that's what we all want, when we're writing a setting, we want people to feel like they're there. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So did you have a coffee shop in mind when you? Yeah.
It was a mashup of a couple of different coffee shops. So Oshkosh has a great, like, historic looking downtown area. They actually, they set a movie there, because some bank robbery or something had happened there, back in the old day gangster movie. So we have a nice looking downtown area, and there is a coffee shop on Main Street, and it's on the corner, and right across the street from it, there is a historic bank building. And so in the book, what I did was I set the coffee shop on the corner across from a bookstore, but part of the story of the bookstore is that to build it, the owner bookstore for a historic bank building, to build it there. So I kind of did have Oshkosh's downtown in mind, but the inside of Hillside is not like the coffee shop that is there. I think that's a 2-story building. I think it has an apartment above it. Hillside is a 3-story building. Jake's apartment is above it. There was another coffee shop in a town near that had the first floor and then a partial second floor balcony, like what I put in Hillside. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting out there one day with my mom, and there's this little door that goes up. I don't know where it goes on the balcony. It goes somewhere else. So I kind of used that idea that, so it's a coffee shop. It's got a second floor partial balcony, and then from there are stairs up to an apartment, and that's where the hero of the story lives. So it's kind of a mashup of those 2 coffee shops.
Yeah, that's really cool. What's it like to have this book out there after so many years of working on
it? Well, it's exciting. It's humbling too. I've been humbled by some of the things that some advanced reader copies went out, and I've been some of the responses that I've gotten back. I guess I didn't realize some of the ways that I am now, like some of the responses that have come in. I didn't realize some of the ways that God might use this story. And I just have been reminded that I didn't do that. That's not something that that's not something I set out to do. I set out to write a good story. I set out because I liked the story and the characters. and so some of the responses I've gotten back, it's just been like, it's cool to see that God's plans are much bigger than mine. And he's doing things that I'm just mostly oblivious to. I'm writing a story, and he's just really working things for his glory. So it's a really cool process. I'm realizing more and more that the book isn't mine. It's God's. And of course it went through an editing process with my publisher too. And it's just, so it's really neat to see it out there. It's neat to be able to talk to people about it and to hear other people, have thoughts about the characters and the settings and the themes that before were mostly just kind of contained to my little corner of the world, my laptop, so that's a really neat feeling.
Yeah, that is for sure. I mean, I don't know what it is like, but yeah, but it's always interesting when you say you're a writer or an author. I find that people kind of glamorize it a bit.
Yeah.
And think that you get paid lots of money and it's easy.
That's not true.
No, it's not true at all.
Yeah.
We both know we don't get paid hardly at all. So what does success to you as an author mean?
Being faithful to God. I would love to earn a living. I would love to publish a lot of books. But like I said, as I've started to see Justice get out there a little bit more, his plans are bigger than mine. And in the end, what I want to do is look back and see that I followed where he led. So that's really got to be the success. The other things can be distracting sometimes, but that's when it comes down to it, that's got to be what it is.
Yeah. As a creative person, how do you stay inspired to keep writing?
Reading helps. Writing friends really help. Those people who will be like, hey, join this book club about a poetry book. Let's be poetry buddies. Someone like that. But yeah, reading, sometimes listening to music, if you find maybe a whole album that matches the mood of the story that you're writing, that can really help. Getting out of the house, going for walks, but also new life experiences. I'm still waiting to see how hosting an exchange student from China is going to impact my fiction. That's got to have an impact. I'm sure it will. So I'm looking forward to that.
You'll have a story someday.
Yeah.
Woven in there. I also love how you use setting, and you use the setting of Lake Michigan, even in the story, right?
I don't think the lake showed up.
Or is it just the lake? I'm sorry.
Did the lake show up in it? Oh, yeah, they do. They go to a lake. Yes, on a bridge, right? Yes.
Maybe it wasn't Lake Michigan.
But that's what you pictured, which is fun.
That's what I pictured. Well, and I'm thinking of the pictures that you take often in your walks that you post on Instagram and stuff, which are just beautiful. Yeah. Is that a source of inspiration for you?
Well, it must be, because it did. I know exactly what lake you're talking about now. A lake did end up in Justice. There are a few lakes around here. So part of, North Adams, which is the city in Justice, is really a fictionalized Oshkosh. So that is an actual setting that's near my house. There's a bike trail. There are a couple lakes right here. And so there's a bike trail you take out to a bridge, and it's on one of the smaller lakes around here. Water and nature. And I'm trying to think, some of the only stories I didn't set in Wisconsin, one had to do with mountains and the other one was set on the ocean. So there's usually something to do with nature that's part of setting. So.
Yeah. I don't know who said it, but I think as kids were told, to write what you know, or some great author said that, I don't know.
Someone said it. I don't know
Do you
either.
feel like it's true at all? Like, do you feel like you can only write what you know, or can you write um, from, mountains and ocean and other life experiences?
Yeah. I'm most comfortable writing what I know. But I also rely a lot on research for certain things. In Brooklyn is dealing with the aftermath of a rape that involves some research for me because I hadn't experienced that. But it's funny, sometimes when you are writing about something, um, I just had a critique partner read a scene and she's like, wait, how did this get over there? How did how did this scene work? Because writing about a place I was familiar with, or I was writing about a food truck. And my brother has a food truck. So I was writing about what I knew and I was all excited about it. Well, it turned out the experience didn't translate very well because then I was making assumptions about things like the way the reader might picture it that didn't necessarily translate onto the page. So it's a balance. When you're writing what you know, you have to be careful. And when you're not writing what you know, you have to do research and be careful about that too. So
Yeah, but that sounds like some pretty fun research, to work in a food truck.
hang out in a food truck, yeah. You just don't eat a lot while you're hanging out in the food truck. So maybe
Yeah.
just go to a food truck rally and look inside while they're making your food. Might be the way to do it.
So you actually made food, like.
Well, my brother cooked the food and I was like the money taker, the order taker.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it was fun. I did it a few times. So
Cool. That's cool. So what's your next adventure?
well, I'm not really sure. I'm always working on a new manuscript. I do have one that I just recently sent to my agent. It has some secondary characters that are the same secondary characters that were in Justice. So Caleb is in both books. And I also set it in North Adams again. So I'm waiting to see what will happen with that. And in the meantime, I'm always drafting something new. So.
I do have to ask, like, when you actually sat down to start to write this book, from start to finish, how long did it take you?
Well, that's tricky because I was working full time. I started the most recent version of it because I had been working on it, a long time ago. And I restarted it probably in 2012. But then I got a different job and my job was demanding. And so I was working between working and driving to work. I mean, it was 50 or 55 hours a week. So not much writing happened during that time. After that, when I quit that job, it was March of 2014. And I think I was clearing agents with Justice by January of 2015 then. That might be right. So yeah, it took a long time. But part of that process was also sending it, not just drafting it, but sending it through a number of critique partners and then adjusting based on their feedback. Now that I am not working other than on writing, if I really want to and I know how the plot is going to work out, if I sit down and work on it, I can write a first draft in 8 weeks, but I have to know how the story is going to go.
Yeah.
And I can't do that if I'm working full time or working outside the house. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where can people find you?
The best place to start is probably my website, which is just emilyconradauthor.com. From there, you can get to my blog and my social media. I'm active on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. But really, if you start there, then hopefully you can get wherever you're trying to go.
Yeah, and your blog is emilyconradauthor.com, right?
Yeah, that's my website, and then the blog is still just a blogger blog, so it's got that blog spot in there. But yeah, you can get there from there.
Okay.
And I forget that Justice is available. You can also find that on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So,
Excellent. And it doesn't have a subtitle or anything. It's just Justice, right?
just Justice. Yeah.
Okay. Yay. Well, I read the book. It's amazing, and I'm so excited to get the word out about it. I think it's going to really affect people in such a great way. And it's available in like a ebook edition right now.
Right. It's available in ebook. That one releases in March, and then in September the paperback is going to come out. If anyone is really in love with paperback and they're sure that's what they want to do, you can pre-order the paperback already. You'll just have a long wait, but that's available on my publisher's website, which is pelicanbookgroup.com.
Okay, so everybody who's listening, get the book. It's wonderful. It will really really make you think about God's love and what it means to forgive. And I think those are things we all need to explore. So thank you, Emily. It's so awesome to finally meet you.
Yeah.
And to hang out together for a little while. So thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been really fun talking to you.
And we're done.